Just like St. Patrick himself returned to Ireland, we have a return to the Not the Monday panel on the Indosport podcast. I'm Conán Doherty, and I'm not saying we've assembled the Avengers here, but we do have one hell of a fusion of coaching minds. Former TG Cahir underdog, coached down at every level underage, my research tells me. One of the key figures behind #Carlo Rising, and current Leitrim football manager Steven Poacher. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Conán.
And we also have former TG Cahir underdog. That's not a mistake. We have an All-Ireland camogie winner. And you know what? I gave you the big up when you were in here the last time, Sarah.
No need to do it again.
You've now turned coach. Sarah O'Donovan is here as well.
Thank you very much.
And Shane Keegan, head of coaching and games at Laois, was a manager in the League of Ireland, also coaching with a GAA club team at the same time. I read UEFA Pro licensed coach and a coaching science masters at UCD.
Don't forget the under-9s. Most important gig of the week.
Shane Keegan. So that's Steven Poacher, Sarah O'Donovan and Shane Keegan all in studio. So the idea of today's show is just to get a lot of experience around the table and have a chat about coaching. So I think it's a interesting topic for me anyway, because obviously coaches are at the coalface. They're working with current players, dealing with real-time trends, rule changes, and it's also an area that gets a bad rap sometimes. I think it's very easy, especially at top level GA, just to say, the coaches are ruining this and the coaches want it this way and that way. But it's always worth hearing from coaches, I think, at any level, because they're thinking about the game more and they're constantly thinking about how to get through to players. So basically, I just want to pick all your brains. I've brought you in here for my benefit, for my self-improvement. So we've got you all together at once. So to that end, in terms of picking your brains, I'm going to start with a bit of a routine. What is a coach's routine? And because you're currently managing Leitrim Senior Football, Stephen, I'm going to start with you. If you're planning out your week now on a Monday, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, I'll take it through a brief Monday. I suppose Monday is a review of the weekend, Conán, a review of the game. We would normally actually, because of the location of a lot of our lads, we don't have access to them, 4 or 5 days a week, and we only meet up on a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, because lads are doing that much travelling from Dublin, and the roads in the west, as you probably know, are not the most accessible. Like, and I think at this stage now, myself and Anthony McGrath have tried every road in the Midlands and the west, but we've found one that takes us to 2 hours. But I'm getting out of the car and we've a walking track, and you do a bit of walking for 10-15 minutes to stretch your legs, and you still feel stiff and sore. So I can only imagine how it's like for a player to make that travel. So what we try and do on a Monday night is we try and have a review on Zoom, with the players. So there's a bit of prep goes into that during the day. You leave on a Sunday, after the game, and you're watching the video when you go back that Sunday night. Monday you're on the WhatsApp with the coaching team, the managing team, and you're getting your video prep together. We might give some players, we might assign some players a wee bit of video work to do as well on the Monday night, and then we present it. And obviously it's not ideal presenting it on Zoom, but it does cut back on contact time with the players, and especially with the travel they have. And then on the Wednesday night you can maximise your time, with the football aspect of things. So then Tuesday's probably just planning. Wednesday, looking ahead then to the opposition we have the following weekend. we would do a lot of private sort of work at home then, obviously on video of the opposition. We'd split that between ourselves, the 4 of us, myself, Anthony, Ryan and Daniel. Wednesday night when we come to training, we would have a bit of a debrief about 7:15, and we would go through the video prep then for the opposition that we have that weekend, and we would then deliver the session based on maybe elements of what we send. So for example, we played awfully last week, and we knew that they were probably going to press us a wee bit higher, so we thought we could maybe hurt them a wee bit on sort of first phase attack. So we did a lot of work on transition play, we did a lot of work on trying to move the ball forward fast, and we did get a lot of joy. We got a brilliant goal off of first phase attack actually, off a kick out, and we were very unlucky actually not to win the game after 3 tough weekends in a row. So the stuff that we've done on the Wednesday, it was great to actually see that come to fruition on the Sunday. But the Friday then is just a refinement of the Wednesday. Try and keep the session short, sharp, positive. And then Saturday it's just, to and fro, and making sure that we've got the team selection right, and chatting, and a lot of contact time between the management team. And then obviously Sunday you're down to the ground early. We used to meet before games, maybe 3-4 hours before a game, get a bite to eat, etc, etc. But for home games, the players like to be in their own home for as long as possible, so we'd only meet 90 minutes before throw. And I know the likes of Armagh would do that as well, to sort of limit that sort of, yourself sitting about a hotel. Like we've been away games this year to Clare. Like our away game to Clare was, we trained on the Friday night We stayed down as a management team on the Friday night. We travel on the Saturday morning to Clare. Then you have a full day in Clare, and you're putting that day in with meetings and a bit of a quiz, a bit of crack, trying to get a wee bit of camaraderie and contact time together. Up on the Sunday morning breakfast, and then you have a game, and you come home on the Sunday evening and you're just exhausted. It's a long weekend when you're away from home like that, and lads, and I was actually thinking, I think the Jurgen Klopp thing, when people were poking fun at him after 9 years at Liverpool, he said he was exhausted. And I actually said, Anthony, I was like, this would drain you every weekend, if you were doing that whole Friday away, Saturday, etc. So you can only imagine what the travel's like for those top teams. But that's really it in a nutshell. But certainly, Conán, you never really switch off. You're thinking all the time, and even just on the way up today, I got the train up today, and like you're using that time just to tick a few boxes of check in with the doctor, check in with the physio, check in with the nutritionist, check in with the boys about the video tonight, and have to catch up with the under-20s because they weren't there on Wednesday. They have their own championship next week, but they unfortunately then backbone our team as well, a third of them. So you're just catching up on a load of little bits and pieces, and you need a big diary, and you nearly need a secretary to be honest with you. But listen, that's the gist of it in a week, and then the travel obviously on top of that.
That's some start. There's a lot of video, a lot of contact time, a lot of meetings. Sarah, are you doing that with your team?
So with Dublin, yes, it was 20 hours a week, and that's the best way of putting it. It was kind of 4 hours. Obviously, you have the 2 hours of travel time that I didn't have when I was in with Dublin. But you're talking about the video analysis. You're talking arriving an hour and a half before the team arrives. You're trying to get to individual players before the session starts to work on things that they might want to work on. You're affording them the opportunity to do that. They didn't always take that opportunity. And then you're lambasting them the following week saying, come here.
So you're saying, I'm going to be here at whatever time.
We're going to be here collectively on the pitch. You come and ask us what you need to work on. We're giving you that opportunity. And that was always there with Dublin. That adds the hour, obviously. Then you're having the food afterwards, like you're saying. You're trying to get everyone together. You're trying to get the girls to eat well, to fuel up before they go home, which is, you're just looking to replenish what they've lost over the course of the 2 hours that they've been out on the pitch. And then you're closing up shop. And that's at an inter-county level. So that's kind of a 20-hour week on top of your 40-hour work week. From a club perspective, I managed Marnogues for a year. Got the keys from Clean O'Connor, who's a fabulous coach, and now is the athletic and development head at Irish Hockey. She handed me the keys to Naomh Marnogue, and it was no different. The only difference, I suppose, is that I was putting out the flags and the nets with the committee from the club, and there was always gentlemen on the sideline who would arrive early from the club to help me put out the flags, to put up the nets. So you're talking again 20 hours a week contact time on top of your 40-hour week. I don't have kids, lads. I can't imagine how my former teammates who are now mums would be able to give that kind of commitment. And I think that's why there's such a chronic lack of female representation on the sideline at the moment.
Well, actually, we can come back to that, but you've teed it up nice. You're hearing 20 hours a week a lot. Why the hell are you doing a couple of teams at once when you're coaching, Shane? When you're in League of Ireland, which seems like, cutting edge and need to be focused on that enough. Just for kicks on the side, then you're travelling down the country.
Yeah, well, look, reality was I when I got the gig that I'm currently in with Laois as head of coaching games, I did just about manage to see out the remainder of the Cove Ramblers season in the League of Ireland. We were going particularly well. We were in the promotion hunt, but it wasn't sustainable long term. It absolutely wasn't sustainable long term. Now I've swapped Cove Ramblers I'm dual manager over J.K. Bracken's senior team in Tipperary. You could argue, well, there is no arguing, we are putting in as many hours on the field, but obviously there's a massive difference in travel. Like, it was an hour and 45 minute drive for me down to Cove and back. It's a 20-minute drive to Templemore and back. So that's a huge difference. And then the other big difference there is my young lad is 10. You couldn't be bringing him up and down the motorway to Cork, but Templemore, he comes to pretty much all the sessions. So if you think about home life, as Sarah touched on there, my wife has gone from 3 nights a week where I was gone from the time I left work in the morning till the time I got home that night to I'm able to get home, we're able to have a bite to eat after work. He'll jump in the car, he'll come with me. She's a bit of time to herself at home. It's a very different situation. But again, similar routine wise. Obviously, the dual nature of what we're trying to do is
you're hurling and football.
Yeah, exactly.
You're managing both teams.
I'm managing and coaching, but now I have helped. Last year, I took every minute of every session across both codes. That obviously wasn't sustainable. That was a bit mad and a bit silly on my behalf. So I've got really good coaching in the hurling, really good coaching in the football, who'll kind of 50-50 spread the load with me this year, and that's how we're balancing that a little bit more. But it is still hectic, the whole week on, week off. So basically, the league started Sunday just past, and basically we'll have a game for 10 weeks straight. League, hurling football for 10 weeks straight, and we will train on Tuesday and Friday for whatever code we're playing Sunday, and then flip. So we will. But the good thing about bringing extra people on board is, so as I say, we played football last week. We're into a hurling week this week. We've been training hurling all this week. We'll play hurling this weekend. But my football coach can deep dive into the football analysis while we're doing a week's hurling training. And he can do, a really we've got another guy you could easily have had on this panel, actually, Evan Talty. Evan is working with me around the analysis and the stats and all that for us. So he'll do a deep dive in there, and he's ready to present, like Stevie says, next Tuesday night. Whereas I probably haven't the time to do that, but when you have a good person with you, you can kind of offload some of that work rate a little bit. One other point I'd make, just on something Stevie touched on when he talked about Klopp. When you speak about routines, obviously I have had the experience of the Dundalk routine, where we had league game every Friday night and a Europa League game every Tuesday or Wednesday, and half of those games in some far-flung part of Europe. I mean,
London.
Like London, yeah. We got a few more better trips than that. Thankfully, Fair Islands was unbelievable. Malta was unbelievable. Vienna, some brilliant spots. But essentially, when you're into that routine that, most of the big Premier League sides are, you're getting one meaningful training session in between games.
Yeah.
Like it's madness. It's you play, you have a recovery day, you have a proper training day, you have a deload day, you play, and that's the constant cycle. So how you actually manage to get your coaching ideas and principles across on the grass in scenarios like that is next to near impossible, to be honest.
I think that contact time, Conán, is probably what separates the really top sides in the country from GA perspective. They have a lot more contact time. Like, I'm only thinking of counties close to my home here, like Down, Armagh, etc. The contact time they have with their players, the Down lads will complain about travelling 30 minutes from Newry to Ballykinler, but in reality, like, it's nothing, like, really, and a lot of those players are based at home as well, and Armagh the same, and having that contact time, what we try to do this year a few times with the Leitrim lads, and I got the idea actually from Keir McKeever and Armagh, is they have nearly internal camps. So we'd meet on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and go right through to 3, and in that you would have maybe a performance workshop with Anthony or whatever, based around psychology. You would have a nutritionist workshop with Julie, you'd have a video workshop, and then obviously then you have your pitch session and your gym session as well, and it's a great day's work.
Like a professional day.
Exactly. And the contact time you have with the players is huge, and you might have that on a Sunday as well, but you're exhausted at the end of them, like, the 2 days, because you're putting that much energy and working it, and you want the day to run smoothly, etc., but just something Shane touched on there is interesting, like having good people around you. I'm lucky that the likes of Anthony, and I know it's Ryan's first venture into county football, but he's with our under-20s last year. Daniel was with Sylvester's for 3 or 4 years as well, has played the game as well, but both him and Ryan have made 150 odd appearances for their county as well, so they understand the working of a county team. And having those people around you and the relationship we have as well is nice, because you need a good dynamic within a playing squad, but you also need, it's very important to have a good dynamic within a coaching staff as well. Massive. I've worked in coaching staff, like we talked about Turlock, who's in with Portlaoise this year. Like, me and him clicked it off from day one, and that was one of the reasons why that little project worked, because the relationship we had, and players could see that relationship. And I'm sure it's the same with you, Sarah, that you're working with people, and then you've worked with people who maybe just haven't got on with, but just the dynamic hasn't been the same, and it just maybe they're thinking of something else, and there's maybe not that level of clarity. And
you say players can see that relationship. Do you mean like they can see if the management team's getting on, if they compliment each other?
Players are smart, but they're also very fickle, and players will but they are, like, players are fickle, right? Players will look for any little crutch at all to get out of jail, right? And I always say, look, start with the man in the mirror. That's who you start with, okay? Don't look for excuses. Years ago I would have looked for every excuse of the referee or the weather or the ball was soft, as a coach, but then you learn, what, it starts with you as a manager, as a coach. Reflect on your own performance, and then start looking at the little things, because those little crutches are all well and good, but the reality is, it's your own performance, and what you're bringing to the table is so important. But going back to that, there is that, definitely, Conán, that importance of having that real good relationship with the management team.
And it's probably every role within the setup, Conán, even the ones that would be deemed to be more minor, like Sarah spoke about, putting out the flags and putting up the nets and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I know our kit man in JK Brackens, as I say, I have a new hurling coach in with me. He commented there about 2 weeks ago. He says, that man is worth his weight in gold. He's worth his weight in gold, and he's right, because everything is bang on, ready to rock. Every cone that could possibly needed, poles, bibs are washed every night, you know what I mean? Every slitter's footballs, everything is ready to rock. We never have to lift a finger in that, and that's nearly a job. And it's, do you know what I mean? Like that, you can add on another couple of extra hours a week because a lot of coaches around the country find themselves pretty much having to do that role as well on top of it. So it's even the minor roles, never mind the higher up ones that Stevie touched on, that you just, if you can get the right people around you, it just makes life so much better.
It's very interesting, Sarah, because have you had that before where you're in a coaching team where maybe it's not clicking, you don't need to give me any names, or you're a player and you can see that as well? Because I'm thinking just what Steven's saying there, when you're a player and the defenders blame the forwards and the forwards blame the defenders, but now there is almost an extension of that now where players blame the management team or vice versa.
I think from my perspective, as a woman in coaching, I wouldn't knock coaching from a female perspective, or trying to get into coaching in what is a male dominated environment. And it's like the workplace. There's leadership positions in the workplace that are male dominated, and we're taking time to get used to women in leadership positions. I think what's important from a management team perspective in all sports is that the roles are clearly defined. I go in knowing that I'm the kit man. I'm not going to be offering analysis, advice to the coach or the manager at the wrong time on the wrong day. I'm going in as a coach. That's my role. I'm not the manager. I don't need to deal with relationships that are possibly awkward, that there's conflict after taking place. I can push that off to the manager. I think the communication is key. So whether you have 10 people or 5 people on the management team, if everyone's role is defined and clearly defined, and the players understand it as well, because Joe heading to talk to one of the coaches saying he's not getting a fair go, not necessarily the right place to go. He needs to go to the manager. At the start of the year, you need a handbook. And then you can iron out all of those complications or niggles that come up through a season by having that handbook, and the manager has to lead with that. And I think when we speak about Jim Gavin later, I think that's what he did best. It was clearly identified who did what.
Yeah. Is there a difference, just that you're bringing it up there now? You've all coached girls and boys at all levels. Do you find there's a big difference, or you're talking about the dropout level, Sarah?
From the last couple of years, I've coached both males and females. I've coached adult girls and under 16 girls. Difference last year actually was that I was on an all-female coaching team, coaching under 16 camogie team. Myself, my sister, a lady named Conán, and a lady named Deirdre, and we've all played the game. So it's my sport. I consider camogie my sport. And what was interesting to us as we went to Féile, as we went through the under 16 county championship in Cork, which are very well got and very well supported, but very male focused in terms of the sidelines, we got a lot of compliments from men in opposition teams about the way we were organised, both in game and out of game. And I was really surprised because I was thinking, I've played this sport all my life. Why are you surprised that I know how to make decisions in game about who should play where? And they meant it as a compliment. Absolutely. But
it is a fair play to you sort of thing.
Yeah, they just weren't used to seeing an all-female team. This year, actually, the club has reverted to kind of an all-male team. But that's because I was able to give it a year. My sister was able to give it a year. She's a new mum. You know, we can go in at certain points and try and make these statements. It wasn't a statement at the time. It just happened to suit our schedules. But I hope those girls last year had kind of the experience of having an all-female coaching team. I did a poll yesterday coming on here for today, and I went through the phone book, and because I've obviously played with lots of different teams from Dublin and Cork City and loads of different sports, emailed and texted all of the girls, former All-Ireland winners, soccer players, the works. Got 20 responses back asking the girls if I thought that female coaches or male coaches had a more authoritative position in the setup, and they all came back and said no, we just haven't had any experience of female coaches over the years, so they couldn't definitively say that women were more receptive to men on the sideline. They
couldn't say that. They're just more used to that.
It was a sweeping statement. I had said, what's your experience? And they said, we can't say that. We have had no experience of women coaches. And in the rare experience that we have had, it's not been something that we've identified as different. And I would almost say in high performance environments that it's genderless.
Yeah.
Women in high performance environments don't see gender.
Yeah.
They just see the technicalities and the attributes of the coaches that are involved.
I run a coach education workshop in school. We started 15 years ago. It became, last year, it was the largest attended event in Ireland. We had 440 coaches, and Mick Bohan just couldn't believe what he was seeing, for a school, to run an event like this. And a large part of my sort of probably challenges to PR that day. That's putting the day together is fine. Everybody thinks, how do you put this day together? But actually, in fact, it's really easy. You bring the down minors in, you have the facilities there, and the hard part is the PR. So we identified that we weren't getting a lot of females at these days, so we actually went hard female side. So we went with Mick Bohan, who was the Dublin ladies manager. We went with Evan Talty, who had been the Clare ladies manager in Roscommon. We had Colm Collins in speaking as well, and who was the fourth one? I think it was Mark Dorn. I just can't remember off the top of my head now. You'd probably flip this at me and say, well, why did you not have a female coach presenting? And that is probably true. Maybe we should have. I know we've had it in the past, but we went from probably having no female coaches at the day to only 12, right, out of 440. And I remember, just because I would always sort of reevaluate the day and say, right, what could we do better? And sort of I was reaching out to Armagh, LGFA, all the clubs in Armagh, all the clubs in Down, pushing it out. They're pushing it really hard, and we weren't getting that. So it's interesting you say that, and I'm wondering, is there a perception then maybe among the female population of coaches thinking, well, that's more or less for male teams, or is that is that advertised for just male coaches only, or whatever? I don't know, but I couldn't understand, even with the
yeah. I suppose on a similar line, I would, part of my role with Laois would be to deliver the formal coach education pathway courses, Conán, and I would say, so the first level of it is now called Introduction to Gaelic Games. It's the old Foundation Award, and is compulsory for every coach who's going to set foot in the grass with any team. They have to have done this, and I would say on that course we're near enough 50-50 gender split.
Okay.
Because it's kind of aimed at nursery, 7s, 9s, that sort of age group, 11s.
And it's mandatory,
mandatory, exactly. And then if you jump up to the next one up, Award 1, I would say less than 10% so far have been female on the Award 1s that I have delivered so far. And, as Sarah puts it, is that a time? Is it the amount of time? An Introduction to Gaelic Games is an 8-hour course, and Award 2 is double that. It's a 16-hour course, and Award 1 is double that, 16 hours, and Award 2 is double that again, 32 hours. Is it the home life? Is it making it, hard to get out and put that sort of time into it? We deliver the ICGG, the Introduction to Coaching Gaelic Games Award, to all of the TYs in Laois. And I mean, I can tell you, we quite often go back to some of those TYs when we're running blitzes in the Centre of Excellence and say, listen, any chance you could send us out a few of those TYs to do a bit of coaching or to do a bit of refereeing? And to be honest with you, I think it's probably to do with levels of maturity and that sort of thing. Like, most of the girls will buy and sell the lads, to be honest with you, on that side of things. And quite often it's the girls I'm going back for looking. Listen, rang a guy, Christy, over in Mount Rat yesterday, could you send us out a few? And listen, that avian girl was fantastic. Any chance we could have her again? And, but then where, why is it dissipating from there as it goes up the levels, I suppose?
I don't mean to be flippant, but the popularity of Gaelic for mothers and others is untold.
Oh my God! So I'm involved with
they
the
want to
senior
get
team.
away from their children, not go and coach them.
I swear to God.
And they're looking for those 2 hours a week to be away.
Absolutely.
Honestly, up in Skerries, we've had a number of sessions where they have more people at their session than the senior men's team has. It's incredible.
It's an
They'll be
outlet.
headhunting you next corner.
I want to join.
Headhunting you for the manager's role.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a timing thing, and I do think it's a piece. Genuinely, I don't have children. I don't have that gap to bridge in terms of trying to find somebody to look after my children in the evenings. And my former teammates all have children right now, and they are in the 1 to 3 phase, or their kids are just starting school. They will row back in. They will help out down the line, but they also recognise that it's not necessarily healthy to have your parents coaching you.
It can make such our under 9. We don't have football in the club in Borris-Kilcotton, so my young lad is kicking football with Cole Shanaho, and the lead coach with the under 9s last year for the under 9 for Cole Shanaho was Mary Corwin. Do you remember Mary playing football for Laois? Outstanding, as good a coach as I've come across in any code at any level. My young lad is blessed to have her as a coach. It's just trying to create more opportunities.
I think at elite level, Shane. I think at elite level, sir. I could be right. Excuse the mistake here if I make this. Maria Kinsella, I think maybe Kinsella from Carlow. I think she was the first female coach. She was actually coaching Wexford footballers a couple of years ago, senior footballers. I remember seeing something about that.
And we have
in
had,
the setup, like,
we have had managers over the years. Anne Downey, obviously incredibly successful with Kilkenny. Stella Sinnott in 2007 with Wexford was a manager. Gemma O'Connor is in with the Cork Senior Camogie team this year as a coach / selector. 11 All-Stars. You're looking out at the sideline. She tells you something. You're going to listen, you're going to do it. I don't think there's going to be a question mark of whether she's read it right or wrong. But I do think it's a timing thing in terms of women getting involved in coaching. But I do think there's possibly an opportunity, and we're all guilty of it, broadening the amount of things that we do over the course of a kind of an opportunity. Perhaps we should be more segmented. You recognise that you were an excellent forward. Come in and coach forward play for 6 weeks over the course of the summer, and let that be it. Go to a female coach and say, we're looking for a 6-week stint here for you to work with 6 forwards who we think have got real talent.
Love the way Conán, whenever Sarah's talking about excellent forwards, you point at me, not you.
But you understand. That's what I would say is if you were asking for a solution here to make the time commitment smaller, specify and clarify what it is they're going to be doing with the players.
So that specificity is good, because Stephen, you've made the jump. I don't know if it's a jump, but you've made the transition from coaching to managing. Have you found that much different?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Is it just less fun?
I don't know. I think it's not so much it's less fun, but it's you're managing a lot more people.
Yeah.
So Anthony Cunningham, who I work with in Roscommon, like Anthony was a great guy, a brilliant fella, and I suppose I get a great learning, with Carlow, and the fact that Turlock just let me at it. I did everything more or less. We had a very small management team, and I did everything: warm-ups, football, video, the whole lot. So you were driving a lot of it yourself. Like, it was a very unique, in fact, because in a lot of county setups, you would have had someone for every piece of the jigsaw. I was doing a lot of it, and Turlock was happy with that and happy for me to facilitate that. Hence, probably one of the reasons why it worked so well. Roscommon was slightly different in that Anthony had a huge management team, not huge, but a lot larger, and everyone sort of needed their piece of the pie. The S&C coach, bit of a coach for kickouts, a coach for this, a coach for that. I was brought in more or less to sort of coach a bit of transition play and maybe just make us a little bit more stubborn defensively as well. But you would come with a session plan, and me and Anthony get on like a house on fire. We still do, actually, and I would text him on a regular basis. A great fella, Anthony, and very passionate, and one of the very few managers that has coached both at the highest level in hurling and football. But I would come with a plan. He would say, no, look, see, tonight, just lose that, but keep that. That's good, but that's maybe a bit too intense tonight. And I was like, oh, and you were a wee bit frustrated because you didn't have the control of the session. But at least now, I can, for example, this morning I can say to the lads, like, right, tonight, I'm doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, bang, and we go, and we know what we're doing.
You're still coaching as well.
I absolutely, Conán. Yeah, look, I love coaching, like, and I think the best managers. I'm not saying, I'm not labelling myself as the best managers, but no, I that came out wrong. Like, I'll be hammered for this now. But if you do think of the top managers, the likes of Jim McGuinness and these guys, like, they're coaching, coaching. And I think it's important as a manager you wear all three hats. The coach, selector, manager. I think you have to, wear all three. And I suppose the biggest challenge, Conán, for me, I found is the three things. Dealing with your playing squad, that's fine, I've no issue with that. I was club manager for 15 years, but you're also managing your backroom team.
Yeah.
Okay, and that can be challenging in itself. Okay, I'm very lucky that I haven't had many speed bumps in that. But you're also dealing with county boards. So you're dealing with county board, and our county board are brilliant. Declan, Martin, those guys that I'm dealing with, they're really great, and they're great people. But then you're also dealing with the under-20 management as well, because we've so many players. So it's a lot going on, and it does pull you in different directions sometimes. Like, for example, the other day I was consumed by something that I probably didn't really need to be consumed by. And as Anthony was saying to me in the car, like your energy should be getting into tonight's session, and I was consumed by something that had no relevance to the session at all. And you're like, but what I enjoy about the backroom team is that we've got good people in around us. Dara Finn, S&C, Darryl come in, he'll do his job. The Roy Keane thing, just do your job. But it really is that. And I always say as well, like, you shouldn't have to muddy cuddle your backroom team either. You trust them. We brought in a nutritionist, Julia. She's brilliant. She just comes in. You wouldn't even know she's there. She does her job, and it's brilliant. You know, and you need that, because it's like a school. If a new teacher starts in the school, the principal's not following her around for 3 days saying, "Are you okay, son? Are you okay?" You're a qualified teacher. Go and do your job. You know, and there's your keys, and you go and do it. So that's what you're sort of hoping for in your backroom team. That just go about your job and just do it in a quiet manner. I think when you're doing it in a quiet manner, as Sarah talked about earlier, it's easier. But certainly from a managing point of view, Conán, I had that 15 years obviously of club management, like, and I felt it was just the right opportunity and the right time to step up, you know, with the experience that I have now in inter-county management.
Of course. Even just want to talk about the analysis a bit more, Shane, because you're talking about your fixture schedule there when you were with the like of Dundalk. What is the approach then to analysis? I think, Stephen, you sort of said something that, you know, it was warm in my heart anyway, where it was like, it was 15 minutes or something before a session and get out of there, because I always hear the stories of people who are standing around for an hour looking through just the whole match again. Yeah. What would your approach be, Shane?
Yeah, so I suppose if I jump back to League of Ireland first, we're kind of blessed now at League of Ireland in that the league have done a deal with a company called Y Scout. So basically, Y Scout,
Emer Hallgrimsson's best friend.
Yes, there you are. It became famous when he brought it up, all right. But basically, every single game is uploaded to Y Scout. Every single League of Ireland game is uploaded to Y Scout within kind of 12 hours maximum of the game finishing. And then Y Scout have these, I don't know, they must have hundreds of minions in a warehouse somewhere pressing buttons for every single touch of the ball. And basically within 24 hours of the final whistle, I would have received a 36-page statistical report with every number under the sun on the game that we would. So I'd have that by Saturday evening after playing on Friday evening, with every number under the sun. I'll give you a look at one on the phone. Unbelievable level of detail. And then you go onto the platform, onto the website as well, and yeah, I take Sarah's name and I take successful passes, and I'll have a playlist instantly created of all Sarah's successful passes. I look for, you know, Stevie's tackles, just click his name, click the action that I want, playlist of all of those. But the big thing here is everybody had 100% access to everything. So I don't just have that for me. As an opposition player, I can click on you, Conán, and watch all of the, you know, creative passes that you've played over the last season. That'd be a playlist now, I'm telling you. We'd all enjoy that one. So we would. And you've got to back yourself as a manager and your analyst, or you've got to back yourselves to make more of that information than the others. So I can see all of the other teams' match reports, I can see all of their highlights, all of their clips, the whole lot. I mean, I think the likes of a Johnny Bradley and a couple of people like that who are high up on the analysis side and working with the GA, I think that's, you know, Davy Morris, I think that's kind of where they're trying to get to.
Change the culture first.
We're going to have a problem with that, certainly, given what we've heard, you know, with Jim saying that clubs wouldn't share GPS information. You know, the idea of inter-county teams management teams wrapping their heads around making everything available to everybody. But oh my God, it's absolutely brilliant when it happens. Like, absolutely brilliant when it happens.
Really and truly, though, Shane, to back that up, like it is a bit ridiculous, because the GA have this whole cover your homework type thing, you know. Don't let them know what we're doing. But everybody knows, like, if you're going to play Dublin on Saturday night, you know who who your matchups are, you know what way they're going to set up, you know what their kickouts are all about. If you're going to play Armagh, the same, you know, the video work, as you say, like we've Billy McGuire and stats, like, and Billy come in and they produce all this information. But the important thing, just which I think is important, is what you're exposing the players to, because a lot of players that would just powerless by analysis, they would just freeze, you know. And I think that's important.
So this is why I actually want to talk about it, because I actually think I've got a problem with, I hate being told how to suck eggs, right? You know, so I'm so paranoid of telling other people stuff that they know. So, but I think I probably get that wrong then sometimes, where if I'm standing in front of a group of players, I'm like, you know, just trying to ramble through it because I don't want to waste their time, but they probably don't know, or they probably haven't seen what I'm about to show them, and I feel like I'm just speeding through in the interest of like not wanting to bore them.
I was definitely initially, when I got it, because I've always kind of been a numbers geek. I liked maths in school and all that kind of stuff, and initially it used to be, my mindset was, I know all of this and therefore they need to know all of this, and I was giving them information that they no more cared about. You know the phrase, not every number that can be counted counts, that kind of stuff. I had to learn to, they don't need to know I can do a deep dive here and I need to know all this, but they don't need to know all of this. And actually, what probably worked in my favour was my period at Dundalk overlapped with COVID, where you weren't allowed to be within a certain distance of people for more than 14 minutes. And our team doctor was heavily involved with the FAI, so had been on that flight where, remember the famous flight where they were sitting too close to each other and all that. So basically our video analysis, he would literally, as they walked into the room, he would press play on the timer on the stopwatch, and once we hit 13 minutes, he'd start going like this to me, and we had to wrap it up inside 14 minutes and get everybody back outside the room.
Somebody listening to this episode in 20 years' time, and you talking about it wasn't allowed to be
crazy. But on the player thing, and I'm sure the two lads, I've mentioned this before in kind of talks I've done, the two lads won't mind me saying, like in Dundalk, you would have had the two absolute opposite ends of the spectrum, and yet both outstanding players in a Sean Gannon and a Michael Duffy, right? Sean Gannon, if I presented for an hour, Sean Gannon would still have more questions after the hour. He's just extremely analytical, wants to know everything about the opposition, wants to know his player inside out, wants additional clips sent on to him, the whole lot. As I'm doing my presentation, I can see that Michael Duffy's asleep at the back of the room.
Had to pick
absolutely
the dairy man, didn't he?
No attention to me whatsoever. And yet, 5 minutes before kick-off, Michael will come over and say, did you say that full-back is weaker if I come the inside of him or go the outside of him? Take him on the outside, Michael. I think you'll have more success there. That'll do me. And he'd go out and be man the back. You know what I mean? It's different strokes for different folks.
We have given all the players a leather folder, and within that, then they take it into the video sessions or any performance workshops, and we get them to insist on just taking a couple of bullet points, because what we do then is maybe every other week we would get the players then to come up and could you just talk us through this clip and nearly trying to empower the players like. But that COVID thing, 14 minutes. If he's had to put a plate of chips in the middle, you would have got an extra 10 minutes. There's nothing the rule was or goujons or something.
Well, that's an interesting one that you've just brought up again. You're sorting my segues out for me. It's great. The player involvement / player power that I sort of wanted to talk about, because player power can sound negative, but obviously a lot of management teams are happy for players to have input. Sarah, what would you say is a healthy level of input in a team involving obviously coaches and involving players? Do you want that much feedback from your players? How much do you take it on board? And where is the line when you say, all right, we're the management team, go back to playing?
So it's interesting because it's obviously evolved massively over the kind of 25 years that I was involved with different teams. And my first experience of a high performance unit was the Cork Senior Camogie team in 2004, 2005, 2006. They were incredibly well organised, and the room for feedback wasn't necessarily there for a number of reasons. It wasn't required. The culture was incredibly strong. As a new player in, I was wide-eyed, looking at the level of organisation that was involved with this group, which was quite unusual for a female team at the time, but that was just, I suppose, replicated in Tipperary as well, and replicated in Kilkenny. So we were just kind of in a bubble, playing with very strong teams. So you didn't need to work on the culture, and everyone in the group was very happy and they were incredibly competitive. Kind of move on 20 years and you're in dressing rooms now, and certain players want the culture to be better. They're demanding more of their teammates. It can cause friction. They go to the management to look for it to change. The management are saying, sort it amongst yourselves. You have to come together as a collective. It's complicated. And then the management may make a sweeping decision to say, you know what, you're not working hard enough. We'll figure out a way to make you work hard enough, or you're not deserving of this or that. You need to show a better attitude. And it very quickly, I think, groups and teams can become, I suppose, adrift from a management setup, simply because, again, as we go back to the first word, communication is off. I think you need to identify what the culture should be at the start of a season, and then allow the management and players to say, look, we're happy with this, we're not happy with that, and try to come to a place where everyone is happy, or 90% happy. So I suppose the overriding feeling for me in terms of player power is, if you identify something that needs to be changed for the team to work in a more effective way, I think a management are perfectly willing to accept that. If you're saying that the gear isn't nice, like take that argument, or the food's not great, lads, but is it effective? Is the nutritionist giving you what you need to fuel up? It just because it's not to your taste requirements, that's not really an argument that we should be having. So there's certain things management will accept, and you'll probably be able to jump in here, lads. and there's certain things.
Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, look, I suppose I would be a massive believer in empowering the players and giving them a serious say in what they're doing. If you take and bear in mind, I always kind of preface this by saying there is no right or wrong here. It's unfortunately for all the rest of us, it's not a science. It's not something that we can go off and just learn, do this correctly, and then your team wins.
I thought you were learning this.
Well, look, I haven't won enough since then. So, but if you take that spectrum as being Alex Ferguson and Brian Cody on one side of it, up to a Carlo Ancelotti and a Steve Kerr on the other side, right? You know, guys who'd be, Steve Kerr's looking for players to take time, conversations during timeouts and all of that kind of stuff. I would be more to their end. I mean, I'm sure both Sarah and Stevie would have done this kind of thing. So just 2 weeks ago with Brackens, we would have had a workshop where we bring everybody in. We split them into, I think we had 6 groups of 4 or something like that. First question thrown out was, okay, talk to us about the behavioural traits that we want to exhibit as a team this year. Ye 3 take behavioural traits that we need to show more of. Ye 3 take behavioural traits that we need to show less of. We then get all that feedback. I suppose the big thing you're looking for here is this. Now it's them. They're saying it. We're not telling them what we expect of them. They're telling us what they expect of them, if that makes sense. And then we would have thrown out the second question. Talk to us about what playing style you feel will get the most from you in terms of what we try and make happen on the field in training and in games. And again, ye 3 groups take in possession, ye 3 groups take out of possession. You get all the feedback, you collate it, you feed it. Is this what you're telling us? You need to double check that you're hearing things correctly. And if they're giving you all that info, now it's brilliant to get it from them, but also now it's on them a bit. You know what I mean? To a certain extent, now it's on them. It's up to us to deliver what they feel will get the most out of them. But if we can do that, we'll back ourselves to do that. Now it's on them to deliver.
So I like it, right? But is there an underlying thing there where you're both trying to push the blame on the other person, where it's like, well, it's on you, and if we fail, it's your fault because we just empowered you to do it? Like, is there a part of players that just want to be told what to do as well? Because it's the management team that'll lose their job at the end of it all.
I think it's sideline coaching and on-pitch coaching, so we're at a stage where we're doing a lot of sideline coaching, and that's because of the age profile of the group. We probably have one of the youngest squads in Ireland. The average age is about 22. They're very young, they're very inexperienced. We've 14 lads that have never played county football in their lives. We've 14 lads that made their debut in their county senior level this year. So that's giving them players that responsibility and that empowerment, is, you have to be careful. It's nearly like a sort of a drip feed thing where you're giving them bits and pieces of ownership, but it has to come, a lot of that direction now, because they're so young, has to nearly come from us initially.
The sideline coaching is coming from you.
The sideline coaching be a lot more, you're just during games, you're having a coach away through a lot of games. We found that, whereas you get to the stage where I remember playing Armagh in 2017, a challenge match in Crossmaglen. Aidan Falker, I was chatting to him in the Crossmaglen club after. We were sitting having our food. We went down with Carlo, and at the time, and we actually won the game by a point. Now it was Armagh's third string, but I had told all the Carlo players that they were only missing one player, and they went up the road, like bouncing by, as if they'd won the All Ireland. But Armagh's first team were training down the road. But I was chatting to Falker after, and they were Division 3 at that time, and Carlo were Division 4, and actually the two teams played in the league final the following year in Croke Park. But the thing that he talked to me about, he says, you're at the stage where you're doing a lot of sideline coaches, and Geezer wants us to get to a stage where the players are taking ownership on the field and make the calls. Armagh are very much like a set play team. Donaghy brought in a lot of basketball moves. You can see where they filter to one side, where they come in narrow, where they go deep. Barry McCambridge got the goal against, I think it was Dublin, with a set play with Ethan Rafferty came up and the hand goes in the air and everyone goes inside and create that depth, and you get that space in around the D. And so a lot of that is very difficult to coach from the sideline in a big inter-county game, so you're relying on the players to coach that, and we're obviously trying to do something similar with our boys. And we played Wexford in a challenge game at the start of the year, and there was like 2 minutes to go and there was only a point in it, and it was up in Abbottstown, and I'm crying out for, right, we've introduced a few calls, now's the time for a clutch moment, now's the time to make a call, but no one made it. And we're going back in the video saying, this was 2 minutes to go, we had possession, we're in a good place here, we have a structured attack, they're back set, what should we have done here? And you're then looking for them to come forward and say, we should have made a call, right? Okay, you know, and that takes time, Conán. It takes time, you know, it really does take time. And just what Sarah touched about too as well, like those wee crutches, as I would call them, you know, blaming the food. Like I'll give you a good example. In 2010, Down got to an All-Ireland final, and I was with our under-21s at the time, and James was manager of the seniors. It was a great year to be involved, actually, because the 21s and the seniors would have been training together, and we would have played a lot of in-house games, and it just felt as if you were nearly part of it as well. You know, it was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic for the county that year too. But Pat Courtney, a lovely local businessman in Newry, used to do the food, and it was stew and curry, and that's all it was, just two options, stew or curry, right? And it was beautiful, and I used to take 6 or 7 with me and feed the staff room the next day, you know. And long story short, anyway, Jim McCrory came in. Jim was manager then, and Jim was very, very good manager actually, and Jim came in and changed the catering, and he brought in a man who was doing steamed potatoes and broccoli, you know, and Down Hardy one came, and I remember meeting Pat in the shop, and he says to me, he says, fucking, he says, stew and curry got them in All-Ireland final, nothing wrong with it. Now they're eating broccoli and asparagus, he says, and they're going nowhere, and they're, you know, so that's where the food is, you know, in my opinion, like, you know.
Yeah, well, you're touching on a winning culture there, because obviously a 2010 team, was it Cork you lost by a point?
Yeah, I lost by a point. Yeah.
Or the gold jerseys, that's what I put it down to at the time.
The yellow jerseys.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with the red and black jerseys. But Sarah, what would you say is a trend that you've noticed, or definitely a theme that runs through every winning team that you've been involved in, whether it's a player or as a coach?
It's contact time, both on and off the pitch.
Really?
Yeah. It's wanting to be on the pitch before training sessions, to work on things. It's discussing the opposition after games. It's watching the other results.
Everything falls off from that.
Everything falls off from that. And then off the pitch, it's hearing that they went to the beach for a session after the training session just to hang out, or they met that evening and they had their chicken and rice together in Piri Piri, or, you know, one of the restaurants in town, constantly just enjoying each other's time. And that's probably frustrating for the girlfriends and the boyfriends, but that's the truth of it. You just get into this bubble where you are so driven to win something that's all you can think about, and the only people who understand it is the people who are trying to win it with you. So that's been my experience of winning teams, is knowing them inside out by the end of a season, and having, you know, massive memories now, actually thinking back over the years of winning All-Irelands with Cork. I haven't seen some of those girls in 20 years, so I feel like they've stopped in time, and they're still 22, 23, but now they're moms with 4 kids. But I have no in-between experience of them, because we were living in a bubble then.
Wow.
And we literally lived and breathed the game and each other's company, and that's what the success was and where it came from.
And that's why Armagh were successful. You know, they've been together for 4 years, just continuously, and you know, the whole way from COVID they got together, and that was it. And it was living in each other's pockets, as Sarah talks about. I use the club example, Conán. So I obviously coached in my own county for 12 years, managed in my own county for 12 years, 6 of those with Ballyholland, 3 with Mayorbridge, 3 with Inreacht in the Kingdom. And I would have come up against Kilcoo. You know, I've lost a couple of quarterfinals, a couple of semi-finals, I've lost a couple of finals. You know, I've post-traumatic stress syndrome talking about Kilcoo here. I'm just seeing black here and white, and you know. But on a serious note, I have great admiration and respect for them now. I obviously there's a rivalry there, and you know they've nearly broke me as such as a coach. But the fact of the matter is, the reason I have so much respect is they are obsessed. They are obsessed. They live, sleep, eat, drink, their nutrition, their hydration, their S&C. They're driven. They've got good leaders behind the scenes, like Ian Brannigan, Conor Laverty. Good leaders who are driving that from behind the scenes. But they're an example of a club team. And I'm not saying they're technically and skillfully the most best footballers that in the county that, you know, are in the province. But they're so driven. They play to a civic system. They play to a plan. They've got themselves in unbelievable physical condition. And all those games that we lost narrowly to them, we lost a final narrowly in 2012. It was probably a sliding doors moment for that Mayorbridge team. But you sort of go back through those games, and you go back to all those teams you worked with, and you thought, were you obsessive about your football? Were you obsessive about your conditioning? Were you obsessive about everything in your life? Was that the only thing that was driving you? No. It's as simple as that. You know, you wanted your weekends away, you wanted your stags, your weddings, your holidays. That has to go on hold. Like, and I know that sounds, you know, very much, oh, there's more to life. Yeah, that's okay. But if you want to be successful, you have to be driven. And I think that's one of the things that McGeaney has done to this Armagh group. He's made them obsessive. And I'll tell a short story, Conán, if it's okay. And I'm sure he won't mind here breaking confidentiality. But I asked Aidan Fokker to come in and speak at our prize night. back in November. We ended up getting Paddy Burns. Paddy's a great fella, but we wanted someone because we wanted a GA connection, because the boys had won the historic Pat King Cup in school the year before, and we wanted to honour it by having a GA person speak. And Armagh were coming off hot property, having won the All-Ireland, and Aidan was like, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. And he says, just let me get back to you. And he came back to me, and I just thought it was class, because he came back to me, and he's a vice principal of the school. And he came back and he says, Stevie, he says, I actually have a staff meeting that day, he says, after school, or parental meeting, whatever it was, he says, and I'll not get to the gym if I go to your prize night, and nothing gets in the way of my training. And I just thought, class. Now, in a way, I was disappointed that we didn't have the captain, but at the same time, I fully respected and admired his dedication to his profession, and that's why he's successful. Like back in 2017, 2018, when they were languishing at foot of Division 3, a lot of those players were still there, and there was a small circle driving standards. But that small circle, Aidan was one of those boys, that small circle started getting a little bit bigger, so the younger players coming through. And that's what we're trying to do down the road with the boys in Leitrim. All we're trying to do is make them obsessive about their football, make them sort of have a group of players, and there is a group of players there, Mark Diffs, Barry McNulty, those brilliant footballers, young lads who are driving standards, and the younger lads then coming through, when they see that group of young people driving standards, that small circle, that wee circle just gets a little bit bigger. That's how success comes, and hopefully that those lads will start to believe that and see that,
Armagh thing is a good example, because I think there was this, probably driven by Joe Brawley in fairness, but this perception around Kieran McGeeney that he was a big dark cloud. But then you look at the coaches that he's got, like Kieran Donaghy, Conán Gilligan, like two of the most positive, energetic, good crack, charismatic people. Like, so you sort of answered the question better than I could have, Sarah, because I was thinking about atmosphere, and I was thinking about the group dynamics, and then obviously you have tactics, analysis, and everything else that goes into a winning team. But I think what you said, contact time, all those stuff is an umbrella for everything I'm talking about. But how important is a good atmosphere around the place, Shane? Because I think, yeah, you can be obsessive and driven, but surely it can't be. It can't be like a dark cloud the whole time. It can't be people just laser focused.
Like we're talking about, aside from say the top tier of League of Ireland, even First Division League of Ireland is you could pretty much call it amateur almost for how little they're getting. It's barely covering travelling expenses. So, like, if they don't want to be there, why will they be there? Like, is a genuine question, and we would constantly ask that question. Why do you want to be part of this team with any of the teams that you've worked with? And yeah, they have to enjoy coming to the setup. Now, when I say enjoy, I don't mean enjoy as in everything's laughy and smiley and happy and nobody ever says a bad word. But they enjoy a professional setup. They enjoy being challenged. They enjoy, being put to the pin of their collar and that sort of thing.
And exhausted.
Exactly.
Like, I love the physical exhaustion of training, and I cannot find anything to replicate it now.
Are you running?
No, I've no ACL.
Oh yeah, that's a problem for running,
Yeah, but you're talking about that physical exhaustion. I miss it so much.
Yeah, like I'm the same. Like, say I get a 5k run in usually on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday and Thursday I don't feel as good about myself. Do you know that kind of way? Yeah. And players want that, but they do want to be coming into a setup where, when I say a bit of crack, that there's an atmosphere around the place, that there is room for slagging and taking a piss out of each other, and being able to have that side of it as well, 100%. The other thing that I would layer on top of what the guys have talked about, for me, the common trend both within individuals that I've seen prosper and within teams that I've seen prosper, just that whole concept of mental resilience. Like, it's just so, and it is, you spoke about trends, it's definitely a trend that's something that's on the wane, no doubt about it. And look, I kind of recapped on even my first 12 months in the role, the Laois GA head of coaching and games role, and you're looking at your 14s, 15s, 16s, minors, the teams that I'd have remit over, and you're saying, okay, so where are we at now? Are we seeing technical improvement? Yeah, I think we are. Are we seeing tactical improvement? Yeah. Physical? Yeah, we're getting there. Mental? No. I kind of came away from my first 12 months and saying, we haven't gone after that. And it's arguably the most important side of a young player's makeup is the mental resilience. So we kind of made a conscious decision, right, 2025, we're going after this in a massive way, trying to work on it as much as we possibly can. Like, we held a workshop recently with close to 300. We actually went after, this kind of ties in with it. Where does the mental resilience come from? Mental resilience more often than not comes from what they're being told at home. Certainly with the younger kids, maybe not so much once they reach adult level, but with those young ones who are trying to kick on, fulfill their potential. What's the narrative at home? When things go against them, is it the manager's fault, the referee's fault? What are mum and dad telling them? Are they finding ways out? Or are they saying, well, listen, like Stevie's line, let's look in the mirror first and see what you can do to improve. Some of the guys might have come across Anya McNamara, would be kind of a leading researcher in talent development, and she has one of her research papers is on this whole concept of the rocky road. We actually had a conversation in the office yesterday. One of the lads in the office is from the Harps Hurling Club in Laois, and he was saying it's brilliant that we're doing so well at underage, but because they're winning the whole way up along at underage and then it's stagnating at senior level, and he felt one of the reasons it was stagnating at senior level was because they'd had it so easy the whole way through that once they hit their first stumbling block, first real bit of competition where they weren't to be all the kings, they didn't know how to handle that. And Anya has this paper, a research paper called The Rocky Road, which has shown that so many of the people who reach the highest level, it's because they've experienced so many setbacks as they go along. And it's almost like if we've got one particular minor footballer at the moment he's an outstanding talent, and it's almost like he hasn't had any stumbling blocks so far. How can we create? You almost have to we need to manufacture some stumbling blocks for this kid so that we can help harden him for when the real ones come along.
Was that like James Ryan with the Irish rugby team? Didn't he literally go like
he won every one of his first so many games or something, didn't he? It was,
and then he eventually got dropped out of the squad, as a professional, kind of, 3 years in. That's the resilience piece. You're like, where does it come from? Whereas those Irish under-20s who are losing these last couple of weeks and are taking it in the neck, on both socials and in, I suppose, in the media, will probably be a lot more resilient heading into the Irish senior rugby structure because of the resilience of having experienced pretty high pressure situations in Cork over the last kind of 2-3 weekends.
Absolutely, and just that talk at home is so important. Like how are things been framed in the home house for young players?
This is a big issue, Shane, and I'll tell you, I go back to my own playing days, which is a long time ago at this stage, but I remember having a really good game on a Friday night club football, and coming home waiting on your father to say, like, you're a great game, like, well, you go into the kitchen, you'd say, well, how do you think I got on? And he said, you're all right, like, you did okay, and he would maybe say, you pull out of a ball there, midway through the second half. I was like, right, okay. And you go into the room devastated, right? And I remember he was actually a manager of the local soccer team at the time, like, and he dropped me for a whole year, like under 14. I used to go into the kitchen, crying to my mother, like, why is she not playing me? And he was making an example that just because you're my son, you're not playing. But in a strange way, he was building an unknown resilience to me, and you were like going, and that's why now, like, I laugh and joke because, like, as you talk about socials and different, people would text me saying, you see your man's giving you a bit of stick. It wouldn't faze me in the slightest. What was said, or you've probably seen some of the stuff that Wooly and the boys and Brawley and boys have thrown at me, but it doesn't bother me. Like, and that's why my one worry with this young group in Leitrim is that there's so much negativity on social media now. It's just a cesspit of negativity that these young lads, we were in unprecedented territory in the first 3 league games, and at half time 19 points down against Kildare. What do you say to a changing room? And I had to just hold my hands up and say, lads, this has never happened to me before, and as you as a group of players, this has never happened to you. But for those young lads to be diving on a man's boot 2 minutes in injury time in the 72nd minute of that game, diving block on a man's boot, fighting for their lives, 22 points down, that's resilience, that's character, that's spirit. And the following week then got out, and Hawley, who were top of the league, we should have beat them, and just having that wee togetherness. And when the break was on the league, Conán, you're talking about atmosphere and spirit, I said every one of them, we played our home game in Ballinamore. There's a small pub in Ballinamore called Pryor's. Tom Pryor, that won a cigarette from a DCU this year, is part of the Leitrim panel. He's only a young kid. His father, Gay Pryor, owns the bar. And I says, everyone in the Tom's bar after the match, everyone, regardless, the whole squad. And I bought them all a beer, all these young lads, and they're sitting there, and we had a half hour in each other's company, 45 minutes an hour. United game was on, there was a hurling game on as well. They sat together as a wee group, and there was a great atmosphere among them. There was a great spirit, and you have to build that. You have to build that. That's so important. Even in the bad days, it's easy to do that when you win. It's easy to do that. But when you're getting beat every week, it's very difficult to do that. And this will stand by these young lads. The experience that they're getting this year, the fact that a lot of them are being exposed to inter-county football for the very first time, it'll never get any worse for them. It'll never get as bad as it got for them in the first few weeks that they were there, but that spirit and that atmosphere and that togetherness is so important in a group. Like, it really is so important in any group,
Before we finish, like, we've talked about a lot of amazing stuff there and got into the sort of weeds of, like, say, analysis, tactics, everything that goes into coaching a team. But I think the reason we're here and what I really want to know is there still room for a changing room speech? That's all I want to know. I mean, because I'm very conscious of all the stuff that goes into it, nutrition, conditioning and resilience. And then I also know at Croke Park, it's sort of a bit stupid if you did do a rousing speech, because then you're going out, you're standing, you're shaking hands, the president might come down, you're doing a lap of the pitch, you're doing another warm-up. Like, what was the speech really worth it then by the time the match actually starts? But how do we all feel about a half-time speech at least?
I'm going to mention some former managers of mine over a very long career.
Yeah.
Brian Mullins, David Herity, Shane O'Brien, Sue Ronan, former Irish manager, Frankie Flannery, very successful Cork hurling coach. I can't remember one single speech.
What? Not even from Brian Mullins, the Derry legend, no?
I loved Brian.
Oh.
But it's just, before games, you were so focused on your own job. At half time, whatever came across.
Sarah, you're breaking my heart.
I know. But this is the realisation I had. I've just listed 6-7 people who have been incredibly successful in their careers as managers. And I can't. I know they were successful, and I know we were successful because of their input. But not a single word.
I'm starting to wonder how many times you've watched the Pacino Inches speeches at this stage. So yeah.
And this is the contradiction, right? Because I'm such a little nerd, right? I love the tactics board, I love drilling down the stats and stuff, but I do love a bit of come on, like, you know, I love just flicking on a Hollywood film. And two of my favourite GA stories, they're Derry based, obviously, but it was a '93 semi-final where Derry played Dublin, and Eamon Coleman was in charge, and Mickey Moran was his coach, and apparently Mickey Moran took over at half time. The quiet, reserved Mickey Moran had seen enough, and they had that comeback again. I've got goosebumps telling you the story. And then in the 2006, of course, we all remember this game, first round against Tyrone in Healy Park, All-Ireland champions. Derry were 6-0 up at half time, and they won the match, but I think they lost to Fermanagh the next game. But Eamon Coleman was apparently brought in by Paddy Crozier to give a rousing speech beforehand. I don't know why, but I need to believe that stuff still has a place. Come on, you're there now.
Well, you look at Fergie walking into the change rooms and saying, "Lads, it's Tottenham, it's Spurs," you know, and you're thinking, I wonder if Jim Gavin walking into the Dublin change rooms and say, "Lads, it's Carlo," you know, when we were there. But no, but listen, you know, on a serious note, Conán, like I worked with Damien Barton for a year actually, and Barton was actually my first ever year coaching, and I took a lot from him because he was like, you know, I was tingling as a coach. Like, I was standing going, I wonder what you're thinking here as a player. Like, sometimes it is good to pull an emotion. Emotion's a very powerful thing to play on, and you know, we would have used a good bit of it probably, you know, Ricardo Days would have used a good bit of it just from a motivational point of view, you know, maybe a newspaper article and pull it out and say, look at this here from him, you know, and are you going to accept that, you know, and you can pull on those. And look, from my own experience, I remember Ross Carr was our club manager way back in 2001, and we were playing the championship final, and Sean O'Neill, a great Newry Mitchell's man, came into the change rooms, and Sean was one of the greatest footballers ever played the game. I think his face got on a stamp as well, which is how popular Sean was. Like, he was like a millennium team in the millennium, whatever. But Sean gave a speech, and I don't remember anything of it. It was all about the Mitchell's teams of the 60s and the great senior championship winning teams of the 60s. And Ross just closed the door, and he just said, "With all due respect to tradition, fuck tradition." He says, "Go and make your own." You know, and you're right. And that wee sort of thing always resonated with me, you know. And I don't use that now, but I do sometimes, obviously, depending on the mood of the change rooms, how I feel, the boys are at it or they're not at it, or maybe there's a wee flatness, pull them in, you know, have a little circle. Eye contact's huge when you're looking at lads, because they know they're engaged. If you're looking at the floor, it's different. Insist on eye contact, you know, let's look each other in the eyes here, you know, and you might give a little bit of a rousing speech or whatever, you might give a wee bit of emotion, but I think if you're using it all the time, Conán, it loses its value, you know.
Come on, Shane, we've got a tie here. Sarah's dead again.
I don't think I'm going to give you what you want either, to be honest. And listen, I think what feeds into it a little bit as well is the change in the GAA structures on the GAA front. Probably, like, you could win an All-Ireland in 4 to 5 games, you know, in 3
knockout games.
Yeah, in previous decades. Whereas now, you know, you can't give a Braveheart speech 20 times in a year. Yeah. Like, it loses complete and utter meaning and effect altogether. I would say, of the halftime team talks that I've given, I would say 80% of the time it's right. What is the you know, what are the stats? What are we
mumbo jumbo.
Going after real actionable things, and, you know, talking about what we need to do differently and trying to make it as tactical. Then there's no doubt 20%, you know, 1 in 5 there are times where the reason you are losing at half time is because the opposition have wanted it.
They wanted it more.
And when that time comes, you need to have, I suppose, a narrative or a purpose or a reason that you can hang your hat on that's going to pull more out of your players in the second half. So
I can see it. I can see the quiet J.K. Bracken's changing room. Everyone doesn't know what to say, and then they hear the footsteps coming down the corridor, and Shane appears ready.
Conán, I used to manage the club Ballyholden. They were a good group of lads, like, but they were very honest. But with a lot of lads who were just honest soldiers, like, and would have just soldiered for you, like, and wouldn't have had a lot of game intelligence, with a lot of fight, a lot of spirit, like, and it worked for them. It did work for that group. But I remember talking to one of the former players there recently. He says, like, so when I think back to your 6 years, well, he says, like, you must have told us some amount of lies. And I says, why? And he goes, because every Friday night you met a man at the garage, you met a man at the post office, you met a man down in the shop. He says, and they don't rate you, and and he says, you couldn't have been speaking to that many people. And I was like, some of it was true, some of it wasn't. So anything to get over the line.
Guys, that was absolutely brilliant. I think we've covered just about everything. We'll have to come back for a part 2 on another bank holiday Monday, definitely, just to hear the updates on the speech. I know, Shane, you're going to change halfway through this year. You're going to turn to Braveheart and know that that's the key. That's what
it'll come out at some stage, for sure.
And I also think we need a part 2, because I want to find out, who do you really want to win most, your hurling team or your football team? Because I know there's an answer there, but we'll come back and get that.
No, it's Tipperary. We'll let that speak for itself.
Thanks a million for joining us, Shane Keegan, Steven Poacher and Sarah O'Donovan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll be back tomorrow in your feed. Subscribe to the Indo Sport. Subscribe to that YouTube channel as well, at Indo Sport Podcast. Otherwise, I'll lose my job if you don't. So we'll chat to you tomorrow. All the best.